During the 1960s, Roscoe Films travelled the length and breadth of the country, filming events for the British Racing and Sports Car Club. Often the stars of the show were the GT and sports cars. On this DVD you will see everything from club racing through to a World Championship decider.
Meantime, the grid lines up for the Grand Touring Car event. 2 E-Type Jaguars and 2 Ferraris Berlinettas share the front row of the grid. For 2 laps of the 10, Jack Sears led Roy Salvadori, with Graham Whitehead's Ferrari third. But Salvadori came through to win. Marshalling is thirsty work, and Bert Lampkin's about to wet his whistle for Bill Travers to start the Green Helmet Trophy race for sports cars. And off they go. We didn't see what happened, but obviously Raymond did. The star of the film, the Green Helmet, stars in our club film as well, and waves the checkered flag to mark another win by Salvadori. The John Coombs entered Cooper Monaco gives Roy his second victory of the day. Now the Grand Tourers come out. Graham Hill and Salvadori on E-Types are followed by Peter Jop's Elite. Parks comes up to the line on the red or East Berlinetta Ferrari. Next to him is Sterling, also on a Berlinetta. Down goes the flag and the driver's feet. The blue Berlinetta leads from the red one. And soon it's Moss way out on his own, with the E-Types second and third. Further down the field, Les Leston and Graham Warner continue their season-long scrap, with Daddy-O winning from Love One. On the 8th of the 20 laps, Graham Hill suffered a puncture. And Sterling Moss drove home an easy victor. Sterling steps up to receive his garland and the Pico Trophy. And goes off for a lap of honour in an E-Type Jaguar.
The flag falls and drivers start lap 1 of this 1.7-mile course. Rufford is an airfield circuit, with the perimeter track providing the bends and a runway forming the main straight. Finney in the U2 finds himself the wrong side of the barrels. But Burgess and the Lotus makes no mistake through the S's. Fry's Berlinetta Ferrari added spice to the Grand Touring race. But Baker in the E-Type was an easy winner, breaking the class record in the process. Fry and McNally battled for third place, with the elite just squeezing past. Granville Smith in the Ace tries Camp Corner sideways and goes out to grass. Marshall's Venables, Buckland and Bates take a quick break, but not for long, as Kilburn's Lotus is frying tonight. Dennis Southwood does a quick respray with a fire extinguisher, and all is soon under control. Ken Blakemore comes out to start the sports car race. And a mixed assortment takes off. The Ladybird Sports gets most unladylike. And the Wobbenton Wombat revolves white wound. But it's no parking this side today, so the marshals soon get the Wombat back onto the track. Brands Hatch, August bank holiday, and the big meeting of the year. This was to be Ferrari's day, with wins in the GT and Guards Trophy events. That's a funny place to do the twist. The crowds turned out in their thousands to watch one of the top meetings of the season. The paddock was packed with some of the finest racing machinery in Europe, and the top drivers were there too. John Surtees, Roy Salvadori, and with Bert Lampkin in his island having one of his turns. Mike Parks, who was to win 3 out of the 4 races, 2 of them in Ferraris, talks to teammate Jack Sears. As the mechanics move off towards the pits, the GT cars come out for event 1. Mike Parks, eventual winner in the Ferrari 250 GTO, straps in on the start line. Off the line, it's Surtees' Ferrari, a wheel ahead of Parks. Down Druids, the order is still Surtees, Parks. But by lap 3, it was Parks in the lead at Stirling's Bend, with Surtees second, followed by Salvadori and Ireland. By half distance, the rain had started, and the leaders were beginning to lap the back markers. Ireland and Salvadori were still dueling for third place. Peter Bolton in the TVR tries to keep his car on the island. But it's Parks in the Ferrari, well in the lead for the last time round Paddock Bend. Salvadori and Ireland fought through the rain to gain second and third places. And Parks takes the checkered flag for his first win of the day. The main event of the day, the Guards Trophy for sports cars, with a top-line entry. Joachim Bonnier, Innes Island, this was hardly the weather for last-minute adjustments. Colin Chapman with Ian Walker. And Bonnier in the Testarossa Ferrari. Away from the start, it's Parks, Ireland, Clark, and American Roger Penske. Parks in the Ferrari takes the lead from Ireland in the Lotus. With 50 laps of the full circuit ahead, drivers were in for a wet journey. Parks was showing his skill in the rain by steadily pulling out a lead over Ireland. The leader through Westfield Bend, complete with fist shaking. Parks helps to make a sandwich of one of the back markers. The Team Walker Lotus 23s handle well through Paddock Bend. But Douglas Graham spins at Druids. Back in the pits, Graham is in more trouble. Parks goes into his last lap a clear leader. And the watches are on Ireland in second place. Carlo Abate in the Ferrari bread van goes through Westfield in fourth position. And the leader is through for the last time. At the end of the wettest long-distance race at Brands, Parks has proved his skill with a large car in appalling weather conditions. Congratulated by the Ferrari team, Mike Parks steps out to receive the Guards Trophy for 1962. A clean start for the sports cars. Oh well, just think of the petrol you're saving. The Midland Centre believes in variety, and the programme shows 9 events with all types of cars catered for, and full value for the spectators too. The hairpin provides plenty of spectacle, with no room for driver error. Not much room for overtaking either. Look, ma'am, crossed hands. Ah, Dr. Livingston, I presume. Cadwell always provides excitement, and this meeting was no exception. Best place to see the fun is in the mountain section, where these marshals steel themselves for action. And there's plenty of action to keep them occupied. And now, for those wonderful men and their flying machines. That was Stamp and his Rochdale Olympic, claiming the Cadwell high jump record. The Lotus Elan of Corner drops its sump on the track just to make things really difficult. The oil flags are out, even on the slowing down lap. And the marshals have a full-time job to clear the track and to lay cement. By the end of the meeting, it seemed that half the entry were on the end of a tow hook. And luckiest man was George Duncan, whose prop shaft came up through the floor and grazed his elbow.
Here you are, mate, with the compliments of a spectator with a flat head.
The big sports car race promised a battle royal between Roy Pierpoint in the Attila Climax and Hugh Dibley in the Brabham. But this nearly didn't happen, as Pierpoint had to make some last-minute adjustments to the car before coming to the line. At the end of lap 1, Pierpoint leads Dibley. But a suspension derangement put Roy out of the game on lap 6. And as Dibley took the flag, Pierpoint retires to the paddock. Throughout the day, the sports car boys had been gobbling up the tarmac, and some of the most exciting racing came from these classes. On or off the track, the pace was hot. Most powerful lineup of the day was in the GT race. And all this excitement was beginning to tell on Southwood, who rather lost control of himself. Well, I suppose there's one in every club. The GTs move off in unison, with Ron Fry in his Ferrari holding on to the Galaxy engined E-Type. Side by side into quarry, but Fry makes a sizzle of things. The marshals stay respectfully behind the barriers. But Crabtree in his MGB makes a real effort to dislodge them. And out go the surrender flags. A notable feature of the club circuit at Mallory is the chicane, which is a real driver catcher. With room for only single file traffic, it's not the best place to run out of steam. The big GT race, and Tommy Hitchcock demonstrates the power of the Shelby Cobra. Taking the lead on lap 1, the Cobra was never in any trouble. But trouble came in large measure to Sparks in the Marcos. But his parking was immaculate, and the way was clear for Hitchcock to take the flag.
American Tommy Hitchcock in the Cobra lines up for the Red X trophy race.
Do you see what I see?
It looks as if Hitchcock's in trouble on the line. I think the motor's all right. It's just that he can't get AFN on the radio. Away from the start, the Cobra out-accelerates the pack. And Hitchcock is well clear of Paddock Bend. That's Newton stopping to have his picture taken at Druids. But there's no stopping Hitchcock, who takes the GT lap record as well.
Clubman's sports cars next, and we end our visit to Oulton with their hectic 10-lapper. Well, if you think he got it wrong, take a look at the next character. Greetings to you too, sir. It's the last chance to check tires, or to have a quick pray. Off the start, John Lewis in the E-Type outdragged John Chatham in his big Healy, and after 10 laps of really hairy motoring, this was the order at the end. But nobody could describe the race as uneventful, as one of the most monumental shunts of all time had taken place at Quarry Bend on the first lap. Mrs. Koenig in her Sprite had rolled 5 times, but without injury. And to see how it happened, let's roll back to lap 1 at Quarry Bend. Mrs. Koenig accepts a lift back to the paddock. We cut away to revisit Brands Hatch. The BOAC 500 brings the world's fastest sports cars to Brands Hatch for the final round of the Manufacturers' Championship. The world's top drivers are here to do battle over the full circuit for 6 hours. Surtees with ex-Ferrari team manager Tavoni. First time in England for the Chaparral. And a full Ferrari works team of P4s, out to dislodge Porsche from their 1-point lead in the championship. The Ferrari pit was immaculately laid out at the start, and the entry reads like an international who's who of motor racing, with Phil Hill and McLaren,
Club Secretary Syret and Denny Hulme, a full Ferrari team, Siffert, Porsche, Hill and Rindt, Porsche, Herman, Porsche, Westbury, Lola. As the minutes tick by to 12 noon, the flag is raised for the start of the 6-hour BOAC 500. End of lap 1, and Surtees leads in the Lola. With 6 hours of racing ahead, the pits provided as much interest as the track. The Brabham Hulme Lola was briefly in the lead before a pit stop dropped it back behind the leaders. The Chaparral was always near the front and seemed to have the legs of the Ferraris. The Hill Rindt Porsche dropped a valve and was wheeled away to the paddock. Mike Spence and Phil Hill swapped places in the Chaparral. And the Maranello Ferrari comes in with fumes in the cockpit. A snap decision to remove the windows leads to a fairly comic pit stop as a mechanic hammers out the perspex and handfuls of Ferrari are pulled away. By half distance, the Chaparral looked set for a win, and expensive debris was dotted about the countryside. Dennis Southwood helps Cardwell back from the crashed Chevron, and Surtees is racing on with the sick Lola. Now Hawkins has stuffed the works Ferrari at Clearways. Next time round, he's lost the rear bodywork. At the pits, he's told to go and fetch it. So driving one-handed, he creeps back with the rest of the Ferrari. The end of a brave effort by Surtees as the Lola finally expires. After 6 hours, the flag is out for the winning Chaparral, and Ferrari have beaten Porsche for the Sports Car Championship. Phil Hill and Mike Spence are tired but happy after their drive in the Winged Wonder. And there's another Winged Wonder. This had been a great day for Hill and Spence, and a great day for the British Racing and Sports Car Club, who, with BOAC, had brought a magnificent race to Brands Hatch.
Good Friday 1969 and a bumper grid of cars for the 50-lap Guards International Trophy race at Snetterton. It was an all-Lola front row with Brian Redmond on pole, followed by Joe Bonnier and Paul Hawkins. As the flag dropped, Hawkins made the best getaway. Bonnier, Lola T70. Brian Redmond, Lola T70. Alan de Cadenet, Ferrari Dino. José Juncadella, Ford GT40. Paul Hawkins already in lap traffic. Charles Lucas, Porsche 910. Chris Croft, Lola T70. Joe Bonnier, followed by Richard Atwood. Nick Gold, Porsche 906. Richard Bronstrom on the tail of Nick Gold. After setting the lap record, Brian Redmond's race was over on lap 32 with a blown head gasket. Lap 40 and Atwood's race is also over. That left Paul Hawkins clear to take victory and the winner's cheque of £500.
Hello, I'm David Roscoe, and I'm the character that made the film that you're about to see. It is the 1967 BOAC 500, and it was made from the parts of the film which I thought I would never use. We shot 4:1, in other words, we used 100 feet out of the 400 that we shot. You're going to be privileged to see the footage that has never been seen before. We used to go into the paddock before the race meeting or after practice, and to get the sort of shots which were more casual: people, personalities, cars, close-ups, engines. And we found this a very useful change of pace for the racing. And as you can see, the cars were quite dramatic in those days. There's a chaparral. And the drivers too, you could walk amongst them. It's not like today where you're all pushed to one side and caged away. It was a most enjoyable experience to be in a paddock in the 1960s. A peculiar experience sometimes, as some people brought odd pets with them. Such as this gentleman, who brought a crocodile with him for a reason I never understood. It was great in those days to be able to go on to the start line of a major event and not be crowded out by television cameras and their crews, because television was not covering motor racing in those days, and indeed nor were the film companies making any films for the oil companies. So we really rather had things to ourselves. It enabled us to get near to people like Surtees, to see the Ferraris firsthand, and generally to enjoy ourselves while we were making films which were quite unique in their way. You can see there the Chaparral, which was destined to be most successful in this race, and that I think is Mike Spence, who was racing in those days. I'm afraid rather a lot of them have gone now, so this is a very unique record. And there's Hill, Graham Hill, father of a later world champion, Denny Hulme. All of these people were racing not only in sports cars but Formula One, and some of them in saloons. And this was a meeting being run by the British Racing and Sports Car Club, who were very efficient, and the events they ran at Brands Hatch were of world status. And there's Rindt talking to Hill. There again is another shot of the Chaparral, and the start line is building up for what was going to be a most exciting race. And as the race gets underway, this is a good time to tell you how we made the films. Now, it was usually three of us at a circuit, one at the start and finish and the other two moving around amongst the corners. We used 16mm cameras. They were clockwork, which meant that they only lasted for 25 seconds per shot, then you had to wind them up again. Kodak colour film was used, and also we were very careful to make certain that any shots that we took would link to other shots, which meant that shooting the ratio we did was quite difficult, and we had to be sure that we got things right. The recording was also tricky. We had no portable recorders. We used a reel-to-reel with a car battery, and that meant making up loops of sound, including a screech loop for going round the corner, which was in fact my Ford 10 going round and round a car park on full lock. And so we recorded the races from start to finish, and we were the only people that year to record the Chaparral and its victory. And so as the Chaparral comes through to win, we packed up all our cameras and equipment and went back to the front room in order to make a film for the British Racing and Sports Car Club, which was to be shown in a London cinema at midnight in the autumn to an audience of some 3,000 inebriated club members. Well, I hope you've enjoyed learning how we made the films all those years ago, as much as we enjoyed making them in the 60s.